Think twice before naming a trust as your beneficiary of your retirement accounts. I get this a lot. People have old trusts, living trusts we're talking about, living trusts, revocable living trust, and the other one, inter vivos trust. Those are all the same thing for the same thing. It's living. It can be changed by the grantor. Presumably you are the grantor. You are the person who established the trust, and you are granting assets to it during your life or at death. And how you grant assets to it at death is you name a beneficiary on your retirement accounts, your IRA or something like that. That says, I'm leaving my retirement accounts to my trust. The first thing I say is always, why? What are we trying to accomplish? And I say more often, look, and I'm not an attorney, so don't say I'm practicing law. I'm not. I just say, what are we trying to accomplish? And there'll be usually a lot of hemming and hawing. And they'll say, well, I want to avoid probate. Retirement accounts don't go through probate if you have a beneficiary designation. They bypass probate. That's the benefit of a retirement account or of an annuity, life insurance, even a transfer on death on a brokerage account at your Charles Schwab. A TOD is a way to bypass probate on a brokerage account. It's called a transfer on death arrangement, where you're saying, Josh Scanlon, Charlotte Scanlon, we have a joint account over at Schwab. We name my kids as a TOD, 25% each. Easy as pie. It bypasses probate. A POD at a bank, payable on death at a bank, bypasses probate. So naming a beneficiary designation as a trust doesn't do anything in that regard because the IRA's already bypassed probate anyway. So what else are we trying to do? I get it. If you got a kid that's dealing crack cocaine, we want to protect him from himself, 100%. We want to protect your accounts from in-laws and outlaws. All right, so we want to make sure that the outlaws, maybe your husband is married to a clown and she's going to steal all your money and use it to pay the pool boy and flee to Costa Rica. Yeah, 100%. A trust is good in that regard for sure. Maybe you got a guy who has a kid who's got special needs, Down syndrome. They can't manage the money, so a trust makes sense there. You got to protect the assets from the children a lot of times, or protect the children actually from the assets might be the better way to look at it. But you got to think, what are we trying to accomplish? A living trust doesn't avoid estate tax, just FYI. It doesn't avoid estate tax. And remember, a living trust, a revocable living trust becomes irrevocable at death, all right? Just keep that in mind. So it's not easy to change the terms of a trust upon the grantor, and that would be you, dying. I tell you, man, be very, very careful on naming your living trust as beneficiary. For so many reasons. Now, some people, and I don't like this, up to you, they'll say, well, I only want to give a 33% of my money to my kids when they hit 25, 35, and 45. Oh, and they set that up back when the kid was a teen. Maybe the kid was like one of my kids as a teen, you're like, yeah, that kid, man, I don't know, man. I don't know if that kid's going to be inherit a couple of $100,000. So I'm going to set this trust up to make sure he only gets a third, a third, a third. People change, man. People change. And now your kid's 25 years old. He's got a degree from, I don't know, Georgia Tech, and he's kicking butts and taking names, and he's not selling crack, and he doesn't have an outlaw. What are you trying to protect him from? Why wait for the 25, 35, or 45? My nose itches. I don't do cocaine. Just, I guess, all the talk about crack, man, my nose itch. Nosy itch. I'm getting a colonoscopy here in about 4 hours, too. Haven't had anything to eat in, 24 hours. Feeling okay. You might see a little bit of a thin old Josh. Might be losing some weight because of my colonoscopy. Look out, ladies. Anyway, so we're saying I want to protect my kids because I don't want them clowning my money. So I'm going to wait until they age. Look, you can do that. I don't find that. I don't like that. It's like, are your kids okay? Yeah. All right, we'll leave the money, man. No big deal. And if you find that the kids are doing bad things, then then change around. But remember, the living trust becomes irrevocable at death. And so what you're putting on as your trust document when the kids are 15 stays intact if you don't change it. Be careful. Now, second, so we have that a lot too. And I said, well, not only that, but the kids need the money now. Josh, as a 35-year-old man, needed that money a hell of a lot more than Josh as a 51-year-old man. Let's just put it that way. Don't wait. Don't wait. Why do that to your kids? It's crazy. Unless there's a reason. And again, the whole point is, what are we trying to accomplish? All right. But then on top of that, there's tax reasons too. I just got done reading this about the new Secure Act, the proposal coming from the IRS. And I'm a big fan of Horse's Mouth, as I said 1,000 times a Sunday. Big fan of Deborah Taylor and my man Sean Bailey, who actually interviewed your old buddy Josh a couple years ago. has interviewed her. I haven't heard from Sean. I wonder if I'm on the outs with some of these people just because I don't know. Maybe because my politics. Maybe because my unshaved, unkempt face. Maybe because I'm getting a colonoscopy. I don't know that to be sure. Sean's a good guy. I highly suspect I'm not, but just I haven't heard from people at Horse's Mouth for a couple years. And, you know, I remember Sean, when I first started, was emailing me, I don't say quite a bit, but every now and again. It was neat. So hopefully I'm not on the outs. Hopefully I didn't make anybody mad. I probably did. Not at Horse's Mouth, because I refer to Horse's Mouth a lot, especially Elaine Floyd over at Savvy Social Security Planning and Savvy Medicare Planning as well. All right. So we're going to talk. I don't want to talk about the new Secure Act with RMDs and all that, because it's not official yet. And I just think there's way too much to be confused by, and people are, I just don't want to talk about that. It's confusing as all can be. Until we get official documents from the IRS, I'm just going to avoid that. But you can look into it if you want. Anyway, so I want to talk about right here, though. All right, hold on just a second. We're going to pause it. What Debbie says, beneficiary designations must be on all accounts. I'm going to read you verbatim. This is critical. Critical. I cannot believe how many people screw this up on behalf of what their financial advisors say. It's crazy. Debbie says, well, let me mention one thing just really quick as we're mumbling over all of this. If the proposed IRS regulation goes through, the key thing is to check that there is a beneficiary designation on all your accounts. Because if by mistake the beneficiary is not a person, then it's not a designated beneficiary. It now goes into the 5-year rule that this guy was referring to before. So you want to make sure that you've got a name on it. Otherwise, it goes into a worse pile. Just another thing to think about. Sean says, a name and not a trust. Is that what you're getting at? And Debbie says, we don't want trust unless we have to have a trust on it. I mean, there could be some compelling reason, but we want to. I don't know what she says there. There might be some compelling reason. Again, why are we naming the trust as a beneficiary? What are we trying to solve? A trust does not avoid estate tax. It does not stretch out your IRA any more than just regular beneficiary designations. If anything, it could concentrate the stretch. All right. On top of that, there's a ton of just a nightmare of logistics that goes for the trustee, what's called a successor trustee. All right. So unless there's a compelling reason, like Debbie says, so be careful. You want to check that. Sometimes people will put the estate as their beneficiary, which is the worst thing you can do, because then it gets kicked in the 5-year rule, and we don't want that. And then guess what? If the estate's the beneficiary, guess what determines it? Probate court, because now the estate is the beneficiary of your IRA, which means it has to be probated. And then the will determine who gets what and when and how. On top of that, if there is no will, it's called escheatment. And the IRS estate has a estate plan for you that you might not like. Crazy, man. All right, so then you got to make sure those beneficiary designations are in order. All right. We'll come back to the trust issue sometime. I've been monitoring some of these taxes in retirement Facebook groups, and there's a lot of people in there who have trust, but I think they seem very complicated, and the rules are changing. I think that people are unaware of it and all that stuff. So we should probably come back to that topic about trust in the future, 100%. I just think people think trusts are this elixir that solves all these problems. I'm telling you, man, can they? Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. If you got a special needs child, you've got a child with health assistance and whatnot, absolutely. But I mean, look, I got 4 kids. None of my kids are doing coke as we sit here today. If they turn out they're doing coke, I'll probably set up a trust and for that kid specifically and say, hey, I'm going to give, 25, 25, 25, 25, but, kid A is a coke dealer. I'm going to say 25 to him, and I'll name someone as a trustee to make sure that until he stops dealing coke, he doesn't get any of the money, or he gets it over a certain amount of time or something like that. But don't make it more difficult than it is. And being a trustee, by the way, again, this is called a successor trustee. All right, the co-trustee or the initial grantor is typically the trustee. So if I set up a living trust, I am the grantor, I am the trustee. Generally speaking, my wife, Charlotte, will be the co-trustee with me. We're both the grantors. At our demise or at our incapacity, we're going to name a successor trustee to manage the affairs of that trust upon our demise or incapacity. And that person, I tell you, it's not fun, dudes. So be very careful, and especially look at your beneficiary designations. Remember, a trust is not a human being, so thus it's not a designated beneficiary. Now, there's ways to say, what is a designated beneficiary, if that and the other, even through a trust? Again, yes, that just adds a level of complexity. Remember, simplicity is divine. Unless there's a problem we're solving, keep it simple, stupid. Again, I cannot tell you how to practice law. I'm not an attorney. I'll leave that up to you and your attorney, but my goodness, think twice. All right. Love to hear your thoughts. We'll see you